based in Hong Kong, and not only did you see it in theaters and get to return to theaters for this movie, that setting plays a large role in this movie. What was it like to see it absolutely torn to shreds?
I mean, I mean, Hong Kong's had a bit of a rough time of it with kaiju movies between this and Pacific Rim. But yeah, I mean, I've only lived here for now a couple of years, but I was still kind of recognizing certain landmarks and like obviously identifying kind of where they were. And so that was pretty funny to me that it was all in like basically this central district where all of the banks and finance centers were. Rather than kind of any of the more residential parts of Hong Kong. So on that level, that was pretty interesting. Obviously, that's where all the massive skyscrapers are. So it's got the cool lighting and the giant buildings for the monsters to swing off of and punch each other with. And yeah, it's kind of delightful to see. It sounds awful, but to see a city be destroyed on screen like that, I mean, obviously compared, if you tried to think about it in real world terms, it would be horrific, but I tend to avoid that personally in my viewing of these sorts of films, partly because it's happened so often on screen now, but also partly because wide scale destruction is kind of part of the point and the fun of these movies. Is the fact that they're not real, the fact that you're watching them is there's an element of opera and camp to all of these scenarios, and so personally speaking that's never bothered me, but I can understand if people felt a bit like, oh gosh, we're destroying another massive city here.
I was actually surprised. There was a couple times when we go back and cut to the human perspective during all this chaos, and it's just like, it's you see that, like, oh my gosh, there are people there. It's not like Batman versus Superman where the city's abandoned, right, or something like that. There's right, actually people dying, but we don't really see that chaos. And that does contrast a little bit with, I've heard, now you may be able to speak more to this, some of the Japanese adaptations of Godzilla are like perhaps Shin Godzilla is a little bit more of a darker tone.
Yeah, I mean, Shin Godzilla, obviously, I mean, it's coming out of a context where Japan had recently suffered the earthquake and tsunami in 2011. And the governmental response to that, from, obviously I wasn't there, but from what I can understand, it was rather botched. And so Shin Godzilla is responding to that in many ways and showcasing the incompetence of bureaucracy, how inadequate that can be. There's this wonderful scene where all the different departments are debating who is in charge of the giant lizard invading the city, and like trying to pass the buck to each other in a way that's very funny. So again, even though it's quite this serious tone, you've got more like elements of satire that are present there rather than the camp man in a suit energy of the earlier Toho films, where it is very much the focus is on the monsters themselves and just on the destruction that can be caused. Like Shin Godzilla is much more similar in tone and messaging, if you want to call it that, to the original Godzilla from 1954.